Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Max with Mirror Tech Talk, back with another video. It's been a couple weeks since my last post. Lots happened in 3 weeks, actually about 4 now. So the last video I made, I talked about my issues I was having with my MacBook Pro 16, and like I said, a lot's happened since then. So to recap, that first computer that I got, the MacBook Pro 16, it was the Core i9, the 2.3 gigahertz one, 16 gigs of RAM, 1 terabyte SSD, and then the Radeon with 4 gigabytes of video memory. So, and that's the stock one you can get off of Apple's website or through a retailer like Best Buy. Anyway, so what ended up happening, I had gone through a chain of 4 identical units, so they all had the same specs. I was having a problem where upon waking the computer from sleep, I would get kernel panic crashes almost pretty much every time I left the computer longer than 10 minutes. So when that would happen, I thought, well, maybe I'm having a hardware problem, and I went through 4 units, trying to figure out what was going on. And eventually I was convinced it just had to be a software issue and it wasn't resolved yet. So the new version of Mac OS came out, 10.15.5, I think. And it was okay for a couple days, and then I had the issue again. So I ultimately returned it again. And I was disappointed because it was a great machine. It did all the things I wanted it to do. But it just was a software issue, I guess, that wasn't being fixed. I don't know if this issue was persistent on the 13-inch model of the MacBook Pro. No idea. I just didn't even bother with it. So I ended up getting the new 12-inch iPad Pro for 2020. And I got the model with the Magic Keyboard. I got the 256 gigabyte storage, and I got the version with LTE. So I figured, well, if I'm going to have a tool like this and I want it to be fully portable, I don't have to rely on having, on Wi-Fi hubs or tethering to my phone. So I got the LTE version, and T-Mobile is my current provider, so I get unlimited with our current phone plan. So I ended up with that. It's actually sitting right here in front of me. So this is kind of just like a conclusion to what was going on with my computer. I don't know if every unit is having this problem. I do see forum threads on Apple's web support, website, their forum threads, and a lot of people are describing the same issue I have with the newer units, the ones with the updated keyboards. So again, I don't know how widespread this is. Apple is pretty slow to announce when there's actually an issue, but usually they do make good on their products and eventually do have some type of repair program. But it's for the keyboard, yikes, for the keyboards, for the butterfly keyboards, it took them 3 years to come out with the replacement program. I can't even imagine the logistics nightmare of having to reimburse people that actually paid to repair that issue. But they're giving 4-year warranties on those keyboards now. If you had bought one of those units from the time of sale, you got 4 years of coverage on just, if the keyboard failed. But that was for the butterfly keyboard. The new Magic keyboard should not have that issue because they're scissor mechanisms and they're tried and true. I don't think I've ever seen dust break a keyboard on a scissor mechanism like that within a month of owning the unit. So, but I digress. So to kind of explain my workload, I do programming. A lot of the stuff I do is web-based, so I didn't need to necessarily have a locally installed compiler. So a lot of what I do can be done virtually and through remote desktop, so I didn't really need a computer with a local installation of any of those types of programs. And also now that Photoshop is on iPad, this was kind of a no-brainer for me. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you my setup, and we're gonna go ahead and flip the camera around here. So this is, like I said, the 12.9-inch version with the Magic Keyboard. This is the model with the LiDAR sensor, although it's not really that important for me, not yet, because I think the only reason they put that on this is because the next generation of iPhone is going to have it. At least the Pro model should, and they wanted to give developers time to develop for this sensor. So I have Affinity Photo on here. I have LumaFusion for video editing, social media, Cloud Library, which is an app if you go to your local library and they have a digital collection, you can download books and ebooks, audiobooks. Then I have Lightroom for iPad, and then full Photoshop for iPad. And this is my workload. This is what I do. And Zoom for virtual meetings and, you know, just productivity. So a lot of content creators in the tech space kind of touched on this last year, you know, what is an iPad? And a lot of people argue that it wasn't a computer. And well, by definition, it is a computer. Now, it's not a clamshell. It's not a desktop. It's something else. It's this new category where I can just pull this off. You know, just take the entire screen and take it with me. You know, the Surface series of computers does that too. Surface Pro 6, 7. The Surface Book has a detachable screen. So to kind of, you know, go on a little bit of it on a tangent a little bit, with WWDC right around the corner, I have a feeling that we're going to start seeing more desktop grade apps on the iPad, especially for the Pro models that can handle it. So I'm crossing my fingers that we're going to see stuff like Logic Pro, Xcode, Final Cut. I'd love to see those on this form factor. I'd love a mobile version of those, because you already have GarageBand, which, you know, virtually, if you look at GarageBand on the desktop version, and the recording interface, look at the different, so yes, the user interface is a little different, but as far as the recording scheme here, you have your channels on the left, you have recording space here to see the sound waves, and your effects, your equalizer, the instrument panel, bring up your keyboard, then live loops. Right? Then you'd put in your loops here to create your music, you record your samples, and then sequence them in this grid here. But I would love to see more robust tools available, because you already see third parties doing it with stuff like LumaFusion, Affinity Pro, Adobe Photoshop. It's all here. So I really believe it can be done. The thing that bothered me most about the MacBook Pro is that I feel like they're not necessarily investing the resources anymore in making sure that the software, you know, the finished product of what's going out to the users is stable. And I'm seeing, you know, just from my personal experience, what I've dealt with. Just as on a side note, I did temporarily have a MacBook Air after I had returned the MacBook Pro 16 concurrently with this iPad, and I could not get Sidecar to work. I followed all the instructions, went through all the troubleshooting steps, could not, turned on Bluetooth, turned on AirDrop, made sure that Wi-Fi, they're on the same Wi-Fi networks, logged in, logged out of iCloud. It would not work. Called up Apple support, they couldn't figure it out. So don't know what's going on. I don't know if that issue is just unique for me, but here we are. But with the mobile operating systems, what I'm recording on, I'm using an iPhone SE to record this video. And I love having the synchronicity between these two devices. And not that you don't get that with the laptops or the desktops and your mobile devices with Apple, but this, for me, for whatever reason, is just a little more seamless. I get my messages, I get the calls through FaceTime. As long as it's on, I'll get phone calls on this, regular phone calls. And I was upset that I had spent so much money on a laptop, because the configuration, the last configuration I bought after that 4th model of the MacBook Pro 16, I instead opted to get the Core i9, the same Core i9 that the 16 gigabyte version had, 16 gigabytes of RAM. And I bought the same Core i9, but I got the upgraded model with 32 gigabytes of RAM, a terabyte of storage, and the Radeon Pro 5500 with 8 gigabytes of RAM rather than 4. I was just really disappointed that a $3,200 computer was having issues out of the box with no installed third-party apps, updated to the latest operating system, so it's not like I was working on an older OS, and I was still getting crash issues. It bothers me that the product had been out that long, that there's documented cases of it happening since release. So November of 2019, there was documented cases of that happening. And that's even aside from the speakers popping, which I believe was resolved. I didn't experience that issue with the 32 gigabyte model, but one of the 16 gigabyte RAM, one of the first 4 had that issue, but it may have been isolated, so I don't know. But a lot of the folks in my first video were asking, what I would recommend they do, and I'm like, well, it doesn't hurt if you have the option to return it, buy it new, try it. If it works for you, just keep it. If it works, great. I'm happy for you. My personal experience was not so good. That's all I'm saying. I don't want to dissuade you from buying the product, because they do make excellent laptops. For me, the build quality is bar none, second to none. I love the aluminum builds. I'm so glad they went back to the Magic keyboards. They're having so many issues with the butterfly mechanism switches previous to that, and I don't know. Like I said, I was disappointed, and I just didn't want to keep the unit knowing that there was a possibility that the bug wasn't going to be fixed. So, and there's also some folks asking me if I thought it was a hardware issue, and in short, I don't know. I wish I had the technical prowess to tell you, yeah, it is, or no, it isn't. I don't know. I just know the issue I was having. I wasn't satisfied with it, so I returned it. Now, I've had the iPad Pro here in front of me for a week. It's been flawless. All the apps work. Everything does what I need it to. I'm going to edit this video on this machine using the tools you see here. Oh, I did get the pencil with it. It's easier for me to use on certain programs, but in regards to this Magic Keyboard, I think it's great. I'm so glad they finally put a trackpad on this. Now it doesn't look like a traditional mouse, but it does its job. I know where the mouse is, in relation to where I'm dragging my finger on the pad here. It does its job. It's backlit. Now, they updated these to 13.5 for iOS. I haven't noticed any battery drain issues that were previously reported, and it turns out that was happening because the LEDs in the backlights here on the keyboard, here on the keyboard, they were not turning on when you would close the iPad. So you'd close it and the LEDs would still be on, so it was draining battery faster. At least I think. I don't know if that was the entire reason why, but if you look up some of the forum threads, a lot of people were reporting that the lights were still on. But I bought this after it was updated 13.5, so I couldn't tell you what the issue was. So, in short, I bought this because I was unhappy with the MacBook Pro 16. Didn't want to take a chance with any of the other laptops, assuming it was a software issue causing the problem. So, this is what I have now. I'm happy with it. I can do everything I need to on it. I haven't had any hindrances because you can actually put an external drive on these now through the USB-C port on the side here. You can actually use work files connected to this, so you can work off of it as if it's internal storage, which is really nice to have. So, thank you all for watching. I wish you all the best. Hope you all are healthy, staying safe. Take care. I will see you in the next video.